A very good evening to you, one and all, and welcome to the studios of Sound to Light here in Galway City. Well, it is the moment that many underage players have been waiting for quite some time. And dare I say it, their clubs too, for the best part of 3 years, because incredibly, 2019 was the last time that we had a completed season of underage cup competitions in Connacht. Well, tonight we bring you the draws for 9 cup competitions, 139 teams, boys and girls all involved. An incredible amount of 36 girls teams, 103 boys teams, all playing for what are the most coveted cup competitions in their respective age groups. Tonight we bring you all of those draws in full, and we give a warm welcome to you wherever you're watching us, whether you're in Connacht or around the country or around the world for that matter. For the next while, we'll talk you through every single moment of those draws. Now, there are some mechanics to it, and I will explain them as we go along, and there's a little bit of complication, but we will explain it as each draw progresses. And I'm delighted to be joined by the Youth Chairman and Junior Vice President Michael O'Hare. And Michael, thank you very much for joining us. And as a Sligo man, I know that you're very happy with what happened at the weekend. You're into the Connacht Senior Cup semi-final after beating Galwegians. But we have to take everything out when it comes to the adults, because this is the day of the underage player. This is their time.
Absolutely. And I just want to say hello to everybody online and just wish everybody the best of luck in the Cup.
The Bank of Ireland Youth Cups are so special. They are incredibly unique for each of those teams who go out and train, whether it be midweek or on a Saturday morning, it doesn't matter, because for those teams, the leagues, and well done to everybody in Connacht for getting the leagues completed. But I have to be honest with you, when you play a cup game, it's a completely different story.
Well, absolutely, John. I suppose this year, in the boys, we did a new format for the leagues, and I want to thank Richard Doyle and all in Connacht Rugby for all that, the heavy work, we'll call it, that was put into that to get it up and running, and I think it was a great success. And the finals were all played in December. But I think the be-all and end-all for most clubs is to play in the sports ground in a final at the Cup and win a Cup. And just on that, the Cup finals should be in the sports ground, but for the teams that don't make it, we'll be running a festival for the rest of the teams that don't make the final, just to give them that good experience and show them what rugby is about, and hopefully keep them happy for the following year.
And we must stress as well that even though teams may not progress in the Cup, you know, there are plate competitions also, and that's also very important to those teams, because to win a plate for those teams, for many it's just as important, if not even more so, than taking the Cup itself.
I think on the day when you win the plate, it's just the same as winning the Cup itself. We will be as well, and hopefully we will. For teams that might be out earlier, we'll be running a sevens competition, just to keep the rugby going right through, so there's nobody left without rugby right through to the end of the season.
That's one thing that youth rugby in Connacht has excelled in the past number of years. I mean, when I was an underage player, when the Cup was over, that was it. Your season was done. And for some, that might have been February. So you left yourself with a gap. By this way, you're keeping players involved, and that's crucial for player development. It's also crucial for the players themselves who might like rugby, may not play any other sport, that they're still involved in the game when it comes to the traditional end of the season in April and May.
Absolutely. You know, we've looked at all of this, and I suppose, as we talked earlier, the real bonus for any a young girl or young lad is to play for Connacht and then hopefully play for Ireland. But the big bonus for the clubs is player retention. And if we can keep them involved and, give them the right experience and be professional about it, then we're on the right road to retaining players so that will play for our senior teams. Or if they don't play our senior teams, they might be running the club for us. But we need, that's the whole, I suppose our job is to give them the right experience.
Yeah, very much so. I just noticed, in my introduction, I mentioned that the last time the competition was completed was 2019. And I'm just going back through the winners. Actually, Sligo won the under-13 cup in that particular season. Corinthians won under-14, Galwegians, Ballina, Buccaneers, Ballinasloe. They were the boys' competitions. The girls, you had Craig's, Ballinasloe, and Ballinasloe winning 2, under-16 and under-18. And the fact that in 2020 we only had 2 competitions completed, just about, which led to them, their cups being shared in the girls' game. There must be a real sense of excitement through the clubs themselves now that we are coming to this particular point where we can look forward to cup games, because, like I said, the cup is so special. It adds something to the club as well, though. May I say that it probably gives them a bit of a G up as well. Once coming out with the January and the slump and all that, we've got Cup Rugby in February, and it goes from there.
Well, of course, the new format allowed all the teams to get ready in January, get the Christmas off, get ready in January. And I know an awful lot of them are working very hard. And they're really, and I have to thank all the management and coaches for this. They're really working hard. And whether they're playing a friendly game or a participation game, they're really raring to go. And we're going to be in for a good cup, I think, this year.
I think we're going to be in for 9 good cups, to be very honest, this year. If, from whatever it is, whether it be boys or girls. And of course, the one thing we noticed as well about the girls' game has been the fact, I mentioned it, 36 girls' teams involved in this season's competitions. It's a marked increase. We've seen new clubs and new teams being formed and clubs taking on the girls' game in a much more determined fashion, for want of a better word, because they've really brought in the coaches and the players. Most importantly, the players want to get involved and more girls want to play the game of rugby. So we're going to be in for a great season in that competition. Well,
absolutely, and it makes a club, I think, having girls' teams. Increases the membership, and it just has more people around the club and different sort of people around the club. So I think on that as well, we have to thank Bank of Ireland for sponsoring all our competitions, but on this one, the girls, they're getting more involved, and they're really going to they're getting involved to sponsor the grassroots of girls rugby and to drive it on and see how best to do it. So thanks to Bank of Ireland again, and all who arranged for that and has the idea at the start, and again, all the girls and lads in Connacht Rugby that worked hard to get it this far.
Yeah, it's only going to get bigger. And of course, we have Yvonne Comer, Fiona Steed now in the IRFU Executive Committee, joining another Connacht lady. Ironically, she wasn't representing Connacht when she got voted in. That's the great Susan Carty from Castlereagh, who's a part of World Rugby and is also part of that Executive Committee. So just staying with that for a brief moment, seeing that level of involvement now at the higher echelons of the national game can only be good for the women's game overall. And it's crucial that happens given everything that's happened in the last 12 months.
Yeah, well, I think with the IRFU, I think it was just marvellous news last year that Connacht were going to get 4 reps representing Connacht in the IRFU. And we're like Connacht had always decided, Connacht Rugby, that one of them was going to be a female. And it just, Yvonne got that post, and I think no one better to drive on Connacht ladies rugby, Well,
I can tell you from personal experience, there is none better than Yvonne when it comes to driving on the girls' game and the women's game in the province.
And saying that then, and I know from being in the youth chairman, there's an awful lot of strong women out there driving it in all their clubs.
Yeah.
And Liz Brady over in Westport is one of them, and she's on the committee with us. So you won't get better than them people. Yeah. They're really rugby people. And that's why the game is improving.
And while I'm talking to you as a Sligo man, I better wish your PRO, Jean McConnell, a very happy birthday, because it was her birthday last week, I believe.
So we'll pass that on to her. She'll see this anyway.
Jean, there you go. Happy birthday. And you probably won't speak to me again now for the next 6 months. Anyway, let's get on with the draws, because I think there are under 14 clubs around the province right now telling us to shut up and get on with it. So let's do that. The draws for the Bank of Ireland Girls Under 14 Cup for 2021-2022. Now, this one is a straightforward draw. There are no seeded teams, so all are involved, and Richard Doyle is providing us with those. So let's give a look at the idea of the graphic, and it is a straightforward draw as regards the Girls Under 14 Cup, and a competition that always does gain quite a bit of interest amongst their respective clubs. Ballina, Buccaneers, Castlebar, Claremorris Colts, Connemara, Corb Westport, Craigs, Corinthians, Gort, Loughrea, Sligo, and Tuam Uachtarard. And it will be first team named at home, second team. We've got a couple of buys as well in there. I must mention them as well. As you can see, we have 4 teams who will receive buys. The first 4 will receive buys, and then we move on to the other part of the draw itself. So, Michael, if you would draw out the first team.
To make sure now to give it a good rattle.
And the first team that will be given a bye are Loughrea. So Loughrea will have a bye into the last 8, so they'll be celebrating down there, no doubt. And Sligo won't be so mad at you either. Sligo are the next team drawn out, and they will have a bye into the next round of the competition. Next up are Gort. Gort will receive a bye, and there's one more team that will receive a bye into this, and they are Tuam Uachtarard. So Tuam Uachtarard are the next team. Now we go to the draws themselves as regards who will be playing each other in those last 16 games. So the first team drawn out will be Craigs. Craigs will be at home.
Your own club,
my home club.
Your home club, yes.
My home club, where I've learned to pick up a ball. And they will take on, they're not going to be happy with me, Corb Westport. Craigs will take on Corb Westport. That'll be a cracking game down the green. Next up, another club actually of my own times, Castlebar. And they're going to be at home. So Castlebar will face, and they won't be playing Westport. So the Mayo Derby is not there. So Ballina is possible. No, actually, this will be a good game. Connemara. So Connemara will be heading to Clondish for the Under-14 Girls' Cup last 16. Next up are Buccaneers. So Buccaneers will be at home. So who's going to Dubarry Park? It is Ballina.
They'll enjoy that.
Ballina will be making the journey to Athlone for their game with Bucks. And next up we have got Claremorris Colts. A wonderful club, have done a lot of work with the girls' game in the last couple of years. In fact, shared the Under-16 Cup back in 2019. And they will face...
That's it.
They will face Corinthians. So Corinthians will be heading to Claremorris for the first round, or the last 16 of the Girls Under-14 Cup. And the date is the 5th of February. So let's just recap on the draw once again. And the teams that have received a bye will be Loughrea, Sligo, Gort and Tuam Uachtarard. Then you have got Craigs at home to Corb Westport, Castlebar at home to Connemara, Buccaneers at home to Ballina, and Claremorris will be at home to Corinthians. And those games are scheduled, like we said, for the 5th of February. All clubs will receive the notification, official notification, I'd say by the end of tonight. They'll have full word of that draw, but now they can start planning for the Under-14 Girls' Cup, which plans to be an exciting one. So we're going to move on. I'm going to, while we just have a moment, while they're doing that, I can explain the situation as regards the draws themselves. Now, there are a couple of draws that you will see teams in yellow. Now, those teams are seeded, and they will come into the draw last. Unseeded teams come in first into preliminary round games. Then following those preliminary round games, you will see the winners of those go into the draw again for the next round, which brings in the rest of the unseeded teams. They're drawn out, and then we move into the next stage, which are the seeded teams. We will see it in this particular draw because it is the Girls Under-16 Cup. So as you see, the teams, you will see from the graphic to my left in a moment, the teams that are in yellow, that are here, are seeded teams, and some teams will have byes and the unseeded teams will come into it. Now let's just talk about the seeded teams for starters. You have got Craigs, Ballina, Sligo, Claremorris, Galwegians, Connemara Corinthians, who are amalgamated this year, and Tuam Uachtarard. The unseeded teams are Corb, Ballinrobe, Westport, Castlebar, Buccaneers, and the Loughrea Monivea amalgamation.
and they'll play on the weekend after.
Yeah, it's going to be,
Yeah,
that'd be
yeah,
a great,
yeah.
actually the 12th of February would be a great weekend for that,
Yeah.
for those games. So let's just, we'll get on with the teams that have to come out. And you will see teams move into their respective slots as the draw progresses, and we'll keep talking you through it. So the first team out are Corrib. So Corrib now go into as you can see, they are the third team in the because they're obviously going to be away. So the next of our unseeded teams to get drawn out are Buccaneers. So Buccaneers then go into the home for the next game. Next up are Westport. And Westport will be away. Next up are Loughrea Monivea. Loughrea Monivea will be at home. Our next team unseeded team that will be drawn will be away from home, and they are Castlebar. So Castlebar will be away, and finally it is Ballinrobe. So Ballinrobe will be the team drawn at home. So now you see the unseeded teams that have been drawn. So Corrib, Buccaneers, Westport, Loughrea Monivea, Castlebar and Ballinrobe, they have now gone into their own respective sections. We now see, and I think I have this right, the seeded teams now coming into the draw. So the first seeded team will now receive a bye. So Michael, if you'd do the honours. So the first seeded team that are drawn out will receive a bye, and they are Galwegians. So Galwegians will get a bye. Next seeded team are Chumuk Derard, and they have also received a bye. Now the next team drawn out will be at home to Corrib, and they are Connemara Corinthians. Connemara Corinthians will face Corrib. So Corrib will be heading to, and you will hear me refer to two grounds, either Monastery Field or Clondesh or whatever ground it is that we refer to. Ballinasloe are next as regards the seeded teams. So that is Ballinasloe, and they will take on Buccaneers, local derby. That'll be a cracking game.
Just trying to rattle them up here now.
No problem. Though I say the lads and ladies in Westport will be interested to see who we've got next. And it's a Mayo derby with Ballina. Ballina against Westport. Westport heading to Heffernan Park or Craig's Road, depends what area you come from. And you've got Claremorris Colts who are next up. So Loughrea Monivea will be at home to Claremorris Colts. And next up, Craig's and Castlebar. So the Green will be hosting another underage cup game to savour, no doubt. And finally, the team that will face Ballinrobe are Sligo. So Sligo are the last. So let's recap on those now. We've had our seeded teams. And I have to say, these are mouth-watering encounters. There's no doubt about it. Teams that have received byes are Galwegians, Chumuk Derard. They have received byes. Of the other games that are now being played, you've got Connemara Corinthians taking on Corrib. Buccaneers will face Ballinasloe. Ballina will play Westport. Loughrea Monivea will play Claremorris Colts. Craigs will play Castlebar. And and Ballinrobe will play Sligo. And we have got some absolute. And what's really special about the under-16 age group in girls rugby, of course, everybody starts looking towards next season in the under-17s, the real talent that is coming up through that age group, and who those girls will be playing. A lot of those girls will be playing for Connacht at 16s and 18s level. So we're going to see an amazing standard of rugby from these games, from all of them.
Absolutely, and the few derby matches that are thrown into the middle of all of that, so it makes it very competitive at the very start.
I'm just wondering, would Corrib rather to go to the Monastery Field or to Clondesh? I'm wondering about that. It's a great day out, though, when you head out to Connemara. I have to admit, the one that makes me smile has to be Ballina and Westport, a real local derby.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a Mayo derby. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And, of course, every single one of those games
Yeah.
has got the potential of being an absolute cracker. Really does. And those dates, by the way, just to mention, the date for those games are the 12th of February. Now, you will hear me refer during the draw to another draw that will take place at the very, very end. We'll come to that when the time comes. But that is to determine, because each of the draw boxes that you see here, so all of these draw boxes have numbers. Those numbers will mean something later on when it comes to the last draw, because we will then be looking at the final stages of each competition. So, we'll try and keep you up to speed. And it's also to stop us ourselves from getting confused as well in the process, because there's a lot to get through. But we have another draw to come now. And this is the Girls Under 18 Cup. And this is a fascinating draw, because we will have unseeded teams playing in the preliminary round. They are Sligo, Westport, Connemara Corinthians, Ballinasloe, Gort and Corrib. There will be two games with two preliminary round games. They will feature unseeded teams. Once that draw is over, we will then be joined by Richard, who will put A and B into the cup. They will be the winners, who will then move into our draw for the quarterfinals with the rest of the unseeded teams. After that, our seeded teams then come into the mix, and it all starts to come together as regards who is going to play who. So, with me so far? Hope so. We'll keep going. Let's move on to the preliminaries for the Under-18 Girls Cup. And like I said, these are unseeded teams that come into this competition at this stage. So the first team up are Ballinasloe. Ballinasloe are the first. Now they will be at home, and who will they play? Connemara Corinthians will be heading up the motorway. So it's Connemara Corinthians taking on Ballinasloe in the Girls Under-18 Cup. Gort will be at home in the next of our preliminary round games, and they will take on Westport. So it's Westport who will be travelling to Gort, and you have Ballinasloe at home to Connemara Corinthians. We now have the rest of the unseeded teams in the hat, and they will be joined by of course, the pages that represent the two winners. So let's keep going. And the first up are Corrib. Right, Corrib will be away. And like we said earlier on regarding the earlier ones, remember the unseeded teams are being drawn here, and the teams, if you see the yellow boxes, they are seeded teams. And the winner of preliminary round B will be at home in the second game. So the winner of Ballinasloe and Connemara Corinthians will be at home in their quarterfinals. So there's a nice chase.
B, I think. John.
Preliminary B. Sorry, not A, B.
Yeah.
So it's Gort or Westport. Gort or Westport will be at home. My apologies. Can't get it right all the time. But actually, as it happens, the winner of A, which is next up, will be away. So I'm now going to be, they're probably not going to speak to me, neither Corinthians or Connemara, for quite some time. The winner of preliminary round A are away to a seeded team. I can't wait to get to see my phone around about 9 o'clock tonight. Sligo are next up, and they will be at home.
Great.
So we now have that. We've only made one mess up in the last three draws. It's not so bad. And let's move on now, because the seeded teams are now next up. And this is where our seeded teams of Craigs, Claremorris, Ballina and Tumuk come into the fray. And they are, first team up, Claremorris Colts. So Claremorris Colts will be at home to Corrib. Next up, Craigs. And they will be away to the winner of preliminary round B, which is Gort or Westport. So Gort or Westport will be at home to Craigs. Next up are Tumuk, and they will be at home to the winner of preliminary round A. So not a bad journey. And finally, Ballina. So Ballina are next up, and it'll be a Sligo-Ballina clash. So that would be
in Sligo.
That will be in Sligo. That'd be so. Ballina heading to Strand Hill. So it's not too bad.
Good local derby, no?
Yeah, that'd be a good game. That'd be a really good game. So let's look at the draws once again. And we'll start just once again with the preliminary round games, the weekend of the 12th of February. Ballinasloe against Connemara Corinthians and Gort against Westport. And then the quarterfinals fixed for the 5th of March. Claremorris against Corrib, the winner of Prelim B against Craigs. Tumuk against the winner of Prelim A. And Sligo against Ballina. And they are the Under-18 Girls' Cup competitions for 2021-2022. So our girls' competitions are over, and now we're moving on to the boys' competitions. We've had 3 draws. We've 6 to go. And these are the under 13s up to under 18 and a half boys competitions. And again, just one more, if we, just mention Bank of Ireland again, because obviously their sponsorship for all of these competitions is absolutely crucial, and we must not forget it. And we will mention them 3 or 4 times before this evening is out. But it is going to be what they are going to be contributing. I think they'd be very, very happy with the amount of excitement that will be garnered amongst all the clubs and around the province with these games that are coming up.
But I suppose, John, like all the clubs really depend on all their sponsors, whether they're a small local sponsor or a big sponsor. But in this case, it's Bank of Ireland, and we couldn't do it without them. So really and truly, it's great to have someone of that size backing all of Connacht Rugby, really, and backing, of course, now the women's game or the girls' game, which is great. But again, we can't let it go just to thank all our sponsors in every club. So. What can I say? The Bank of Ireland is this cup competition.
Yeah,
so,
I can actually hear my phone buzzing after that last draw. So I'm not going to touch it until we finish the underage the underage boys competitions, because we've got some absolute beauties to look forward to now regarding the boys. And we were going to start with the under 13 boys cup. A couple of things to add here. There are in this case you have got. Teams that are in yellow, and they are the seeded teams. They are Balna Buccaneers, Craigs, Corinthians Blue, Galwegians, Loughrea, Sligo and Westport. They are our seeded teams. You have Ballinasloe, Banrobe, Carrick-on-Shannon, Castlebar, Claremorris Colts, Connemara, Corrib, Dunmore, Galway Bay, Corinthians Black, Gort, Monavea and Oughterard. There is something we have to just take into consideration here as well, and that's to just note that there is a rule, and if it comes into it, we will bring Richard in to explain it. But there is a rule in this, of course, where the likes of Connemara, or should I say Corinthians Black and Corinthians Blue, cannot meet each other. And if it comes and if it arises, we will bring you a clarification on that, and we will explain it as we move along. But now, let's go to the preliminary rounds. Again, these are all unseeded teams. So, if we could...
And it's just great to see it, John, the list of teams there.
That's fantastic.
It just epitomises where Connacht Rugby is going. That's what you want in every age group. And it's great to see it.
And the other thing as well, I mean, I don't want to mention small or big clubs here, because every club is, when it comes down to 15 against 15 on the day.
Well, I think it's perceived smaller clubs.
Clubs.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be quite a few that would probably not be very happy with me if I call them a smaller club. So I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But I will say, and we talk about teams that might be perceived as smaller clubs. And we mentioned this before, we were chatting before, we talked about scalps that have been taken. For a team to take out one of the perceived bigger clubs in a competition like this, it makes them, it makes them a star. It's a big story in their neck of the woods, and it's a great thing for them.
And it's a great promotion of the game in the area as well, and it gives that experience to these young guys or young girls. It can be done.
Yeah.
It's the parish that's against the bigger clubs.
Yeah.
That's where we want. I suppose that's where we want. We want to be part of the community, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
already I can't wait to see what this draw is going to be like. So let's go with the preliminary round, 5th of February. And as you see, we have 5 games in the prelims, and they're all featuring the unseeded teams. And Carrick-on-Shannon are the first name out. So Carrick-on-Shannon will be at home in the Under 13 Boys Cup. So who's going to be making the trip to Carrick-on-Shannon? It's Claremorris Colts. Claremorris Colts are making the trip to Carrick. Next up, Ballinrobe. So Ballinrobe are at home.
I nearly made
a mistake one day. I said, who's going to the race course? Because they used to play their home games in the race course many years ago. And I said that before someone gave out to me. Galway Bay Rugby Club will be heading to Ballinrobe. Galway Bay Rugby Club will be heading to Ballinrobe. Next up, and it's the green, but not the green that you think it is. The green in Dunmore will be at home. It's Dunmore at home. Now, who are they going to get?
Just don't know.
And Ballinasloe. So Dunmore hosting Ballinasloe in the Under 13 Boys Cup. Next up, Castlebar. Castlebar at home. And they will play Connemara. So Connemara taking on Castlebar. And we have two more of the unseeded teams to come into it. And it's Corinthians Black. Galway Corinthians Black. They are at home and they will face Monivea. Monivea are next up. So let's just recap on the preliminary rounds again. Carrick-on-Shannon against Claremorris. Ballinrobe against Galway Bay Rugby Club. Dunmore against Ballinasloe. Castlebar will face Connemara. And Corinthians Black will play Monivea. Now we see the rest of the teams that are coming into it, and I'm doing the maths. I think there's a couple of unseeded teams left. So let's go with the next one up, and they are Gort. Gort are next. So Gort
At home.
will be at Gort will be away. Yeah, seeded team at home.
Yeah.
The next unseeded team, which will be the winner of Prelim E, so it's Prelim E, that's Corinthians Black or Monivea, will be at home. Next unseeded team, and they will be away, and they are the winner of Prelim C. Dunmore or Ballinasloe will get, they'll be getting a trip next time out, and the winner of Prelim D will be at home in the fourth of our last 16 games. Next up, winner of Prelim A will be away from home. So Carrick-on-Shannon or Claremorris will be on the road. Winner of Prelim B are at home in game 6 of the last 16. Corrib will be on the bus. They're going to be away from home for their game in the last 16. And next up are Oughterard. So Oughterard have been given a home draw in the last 16. So there's all the unseeded teams. So now we bring the seeded teams into play, and if any permutations come up, we will bring it in. We will bring it through them. Westport are going to be at home. So Westport will play Gort. Westport will play Gort. Sligo are away to the winner of Prelim E. So it will be Sligo against either Corinthians Black or Monivea. So Sligo will be on the road for that. Next up are Craigs, who've been drawn at home. Craigs will take on the winner of Prelim C. And Prelim C is Dunmore or Ballinasloe. Some crack if Dunmore won that game. They wouldn't have too far to travel. Buccaneers are next up. And Buccaneers will be away to the winner of Prelim D, which is Castlebar or Connemara. Next up are Ballina. And Ballina will be at home to the winner of Prelim A, which is Carrick-on-Shannon or Claremorris. Loughrea are going to be away, and they'll be travelling to the winner of Prelim B, who are Ballinrobe or Galway Bay Rugby Club. Next are Corinthians Blue. Corinthians Blue drawn at home to Corrib. And finally, the team that will be travelling to Oughterard are Galwegians. Galwegians. So there you have it. The draw for the boys under 13 Cup, and we'll just recap them again very quickly. The preliminary round games: Carrick-on-Shannon, Claremorris, Ballinrobe and Galway Bay Rugby Club is B, Dunmore Ballinasloe is C, Castlebar Connemara is D, and Corinthians Black and Monivea is E. The last 16 games on the 19th of February will be Westport and Gort, winner of Prelim E against Sligo. Craigs at home to the winner of Prelim C. The winner of Prelim D will be at home to Buccaneers. The winner of Prelim A will be away to Ballina. Loughrea will be away to the winner of Prelim B. Corinthians Blue will take on Corrib, and Oughterard will face Galwegians. There's your draw for the last 16 of the Under-13 Boys Cup. And once again, I refer to the numbers, as you will see on the left of the graphic of each of the draws. They come into play a little bit later on when we look at further draws regards the next round. But that is the Under-13 Boys Cup for 2021-2022. And I could say there's going to be a fair bit of excitement amongst each and every one of them clubs, especially when it comes to under 13, because it's their first experience of Cup Rugby, isn't it, really?
Well, absolutely. And what I'm looking at there, John, is the facilities that some of these clubs have. You know, like Craig's and Ballina be probably the best in Ireland at this stage, and other clubs are going that way. So it's all great to see, and it's down to all the hard work of all the committees in them clubs.
It'll be good rugby on a good side, won't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've nothing to worry about now with weather or anything else, you know.
And that's the great thing about it is, I mean, you mentioned the 4G services in Ballina and in Craig's and the work that's going on there. And I do know Craig's are in the middle of their big fundraising draw as well because of what they're doing with their facilities.
Their clubhouse now, yeah. So it's just an example, I suppose, to all our clubs that's the way to go. And when people get together and work hard, you know, you can do that.
I was talking, met Sean Brandon on Saturday actually, and he was there plugging the draw. I think he managed to get
at the gate, like
I think he managed to get Brendan Driscoll for a picture as well, which is which is fair play.
It's great. It's great,
and the support that's been given from all over the province, but not just with Craig's. I mean, they have a big fundraiser, but obviously every club. And we mentioned about the sponsorship from Bank of Ireland. You know, we also stress that each of these clubs have their own sponsors as well, and they need to be supported too. So it's only fair to kind of give them a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, it just washes through to better facilities, better rugby, better membership. So the rising tide lifts all boats.
Absolutely. Let's move to the Boys Under 14 Cup. Again, we've got preliminary round games on the 5th of February, and these are all unseeded teams. Just to go through them very briefly, the unseeded teams are Monivea, Galway Bay, Westport, Claremorris Colts, Buccaneers Yellow, Loughrea, Carb, Tuam, Ballinasloe, Gort, Ballinrobe, Dunmore, Oughterard and Ballina Green. Yes, there are teams with more than one team involved. Buccaneers have 2 teams, Corinthians have 2 teams, and Ballina have 2 teams. We will, if it comes into it that they end up having to play each other, we then find ourselves into another situation, and we'll clarify that again as it goes. So, first of all, the unseeded teams, and the first team out are Monivea. They are the first team out, and they will be at home in the preliminary round to Galway Bay Rugby Club. So Monivea against Galway Bay. Galway Bay heading down to some wonderful, beautiful ground, very picturesque grounds down there in Monivea. Next up are Westport. Westport at home, who's heading to Caraholly. Buccaneers Yellow are heading to Westport in their preliminary round.
Just want to rustle up these, John, a bit now. No.
I'm just looking at it. It's amazing, actually. Now, Claremorris Colts have got a home draw in the Boys Under 14 Cup. And they probably could hear the cheer from Claremorris right now. Next up are Ballinasloe. So Ballinasloe heading to Claremorris.
Let me just rattle these, John, now.
Ballina Green are at home. Ballina Green, they are at home, and they will be at home to Corrib. So Ballina Green will be at home to Corrib. So Corrib, actually, we're talking about great facilities. Corrib will be heading to the 4G up there. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Gort are next up, and Gort will be at home. And who is going to head to Gort? Tuam heading to Gort. Once upon a time, it used to be an awful long journey. Now you do it in half an hour. And next up, and there's a cheer in Dunmore, no doubt, because they're at home. Dunmore at home. And they will be at home to Oughterard. So Oughterard are next up. So now we have the winners of these games, and they will be obviously prelim A, B, C, D, E, and F. And they now move into the last 16 draw with the rest of the unseeded teams and seeded teams to join as well. So let's move on with the next. Now, and as we said, you see the seeded teams, you've got one home, the teams in yellow, they'll be home away in that particular form. So the winner of prelim A will be away. Winner of prelim A will be away. Next up, The winner of Prelim C, they will be at home. So Claremorris or Ballinasloe will have, the winner of that game will have a home date. Next up is the winner of Prelim D. Winner of Prelim D will be on the road. Next team are at home, and they are the winner of Prelim E, Gort or Tuam. Gort or Tuam, they will be at home. Next up, they're away, and it's the winner of Prelim B. Prelim B will be away from home, so that's B is Westport or Buccaneers yellow. The winner of Prelim F have got themselves a home date on the 19th of February. We have two more, and they are Loughrea. So Loughrea are away from home. Loughrea away from home. And finally, Ballinrobe at home. So while we're just bringing in the seeded teams, I'm going to just recap very briefly again on who is where. The winner of Prelim A are away from home. So that is the winner of Monavea or Galway Bay Rugby Club. They will be away. The winner of Prelim C, who are Claremorris or Ballinasloe, they will be at home. The winner of Prelim D, who are Ballina or Corrib, they're going to be away from home. Winner of Prelim E will be at home. So that is E is Gort or Tuam. The winner of Prelim B will be on the road. They will be travelling. They are the winners of Westport and Buccaneers yellow. The winner of Prelim F, Dunmore or Oughterard, will have a home date in the next round. Loughrea have been drawn away from home, and Ballinrobe have been drawn at home. So that's all the unseeded teams. We now bring the seeded teams into the mix, and we will find out who is playing who. So the winner of Prelim A, Monavea or Galway Bay, who are they going to be travelling to? To Craig's. Craig's at home to the winner of Prelim A, Monavea or Galway Bay. Next up, Corinthians Black, drawn at home. Drawn away, I should say. And they're drawn away to the winner of Prelim C, which is Claremorris or Ballinasloe. Ballina Red. They've been drawn at home to the winner of Prelim D, which is Ballina Green or Corrib. Ballina Green or Corrib. So I believe that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Corinthians Blue are next. Now they'll be away to the winner of Prelim E, which is Gort or Tuam. Buccaneers Black are next up, and they will be at home to the winner of Prelim B, which is Westport or Buccaneers Yellow. So we have a situation where we could end up having Corinthians against Corinthians and Buccaneers against Buccaneers if the results go in that particular way. Sligo are next up. And Sligo are on the road to the winner of Prelim F, which is Dunmore or Oughterard. So you could be heading to Sligo or you'll be heading to Oughterard or Dunmore.
One or the other, yeah.
And Carrick and Shannon are next up, and they will take on Loughrea. So Loughrea on the road, they're heading to Carrick. And finally, Galwegians are away, and they're away to Ballinrobe. So Galwegians are away to Ballinrobe. Now, the reason I was just explaining about the other thing, in case you were wondering, is just that there is, as regards a possibility of a situation of, say, teams drawing against each other. But so far, I think we've avoided that situation. So it depends on how the other games, of course, all pan out. And once that arises, it will be dealt with. But so far, so good. Let's recap the draws once again in the preliminary rounds. Monavea and Galway Bay Rugby Club, Westport and Buccaneers, Claremorris and Ballinasloe, Ballina and Corrib, Gort and Tuam, and Dunmore and Oughterard. And then the last 16s, Craig's against the winner of Prelim A, the winner of Prelim C at home to Corinthians Black, Ballina Red at home to the winner of Prelim D, the winner of Prelim E will take on Corinthians Blue, Buccaneers take on Prelim B, the winner of Prelim F take on Sligo, Carrick and Shannon face Loughrea, Ballinrobe take on Galwegians. That is the draw for the boys under 14 Cup for 2021-2022. And the dates, 5th of February for the preliminary round and the last 16 games on the 19th of February. So under 14, it's amazing. And it's actually as well, we mentioned it there a minute ago, but I mean, the fact that you have 3 teams there with more than one team involved, it shows the growth of the game in those particular clubs as well.
Well, it does. And I saw a couple of under 14 matches this year, and I saw the finals which Sligo were in. And the standard of and the quality of the rugby, the coaches again have to be congratulated. It was really good style of rugby, free flowing, and of course on the day the refs help out, and we'd be nowhere without the referees. So a big thank you for everybody on that. But the standard is really, really coming good at under 14.
And can we just mention that? I mean, the fact that referees and associate referees, are the reason these games get played. And, this, it's always important to respect the referee. It's very important byline. And at underage level, people get passionate, people get excited and all that stuff. We have to remember, without referees.
But that's absolutely natural. But you got to hold it and respect the referee. And I was in that situation 100 times myself. The referees are the most important part of our game at the minute. And when you get a good referee in the middle, the game is a better game for it. And I'll talk about it later on. What we are looking at is the spirit of rugby. And the spirit of rugby is you just move on and you have respect. The culture of respect and all is in it. So if we get that in our players, that stands for something as well.
It was like one of the great running jokes somebody mentioned about, rugby is the only sport for a man who's 6'10" and 21 stone. We call a man 5'2", sir.
Yeah.
But that's true.
And that's what it's about. But I think it just builds a culture of respect, and that's what it's about.
Yeah.
For a guy that's in charge, we got to respect him,
Absolutely.
And we thank him after the match. There's a whole load of small little things we can do to make the game better, and we'll talk about it later on, the spirit of rugby.
Absolutely. I want to move on now because we're going to move on to the under-15s. Just to mention, by the way, Sligo are actually the under-13 defending champions from 2019 and Corinthians under-14. Under-15 is a title that's held by Galwegians, and it is time for the draw regarding this. Now, we will have one preliminary round in the under-15 Boys Cup featuring 2 unseeded teams as we've been moving on. And then we move into the last 16, where the winner of that goes into the draw with the other unseeded teams, and then we see the seeded teams get involved. So the unseeded teams are Galwegians, Corb, Connemara, Carrick-on-Shannon, Monivea, Castlebar, Oughterard, Claremorris and Westport. They are the unseeded teams. The seeded teams are Sligo, Buccaneers, Corinthians, Craigs, Gort, Galway Bay, Ballina and Loughrea. So if we'll get the preliminary round, one preliminary round game today. Yeah. It's on the 12th of February, and it gets the under-15 Boys Cup off to a cracking start, no doubt.
Just to get them separated here.
And it's Monivea who will be at home. Monivea at home. So who are they going to play?
Sorry, no, I've got it out.
No panic. Monivea, my phone is still buzzing after that last draw. Connemara. So Monivea taking on Connemara. So, and if you think I'm going to be answering it, you can forget about it. Move on to the last 16. We see the last of the all the unseeded teams, of course, are here now, as well as the winner of Prelim A. So let's draw them out.
All right. Let's go, John.
And they are Claremorris Colts. Are first up. Claremorris Colts, and they will be away from home. And the team at home, Crowley Park, Galwegians, will be at home. The winner of Prelim A, so the reward for Monivea and Connemara, the winner of that game will be a trip to who we don't know yet. Our next team are Corb. So Corb will be at home in the last 16 of the under-15 Boys Cup. Oughterard, you're on the road. You're going to be away from home in your game, your last 16 game. Castlebar will be at home. Castlebar will be at home. Next up, Carrick-on-Shannon. Carrick-on-Shannon away from home. And the last of our unseeded teams are Westport. So Westport will be at home. So they are our unseeded teams. We now bring the seeded teams into the mix. And Claremorris Well, they'll be wondering where they're going to be. The kids are probably going, please let it be a long journey. Please let it be a long journey. We'll get a good day out.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
It is.
That
the
journey,
day
that
out's
trip.
always been special.
Yeah.
Well, it won't be too bad because you're heading to Gort. Claremorris, you are away to Gort. Next up, Ballina. Galwegians at home to Ballina. Next is a home draw, and Corinthians are at home. So Corinthians will be at home to either Monavea or Connemara. Next up, Loughrea. And they will be away to Corrib. Who will Uachtarard be travelling to? They'll be travelling to Athlone. It's Buccaneers. So Uachtarard away to Buccaneers. Next up, Craigs. So it's Craigs on the road. They're heading to Clondish and Castlebar. Sligo, drawn at home to Carrick and Shannon. It's a local enough derby as well, isn't it?
No,
just over the road.
Over the road is right.
And then Galway Bay Rugby Club, they will be making the journey to Caraholly and to Westport. So that is the draw for the last 16 of the Under-15 Boys Cup. Let's just recap again. The preliminary round on the 12th of February will be Monavea or Connemara. The last 16 games, you will have Gort against Claremorris, Galwegians against Ballina, Corinthians at home to either Monavea or Connemara, Corrib at home to Loughrea, Buccaneers at home to Uachtarard, Castlebar at home to Craigs, Sligo at home to Carrick and Shannon, and Westport at home to Galway Bay. And those games, the 5th of March for the last 16 of the Under-15 Boys Cup. Now, I was having a bit of a laugh earlier on because I was saying to you, there's something I wanted to mention. I just said, this is the 30th anniversary of Craigs winning the Under-16 Boys Cup.
You played
beat Ballinasloe in the final. That is. I don't have much rugby silverware, but they're actually organising a reunion.
Lovely.
Quite a few of the boys are organising a reunion. But that, just as we moved to the Under-16 Cup, I thought no better time than right now to mention it. So 30 years ago this year.
You won the Under-16
We
Cup.
won the Under-16 Cup at Ballinasloe in the final in Craigs.
Yeah, and one time, I think the cup was played over a day. The top couple of teams went and played it all in Buccaneers.
I remember, in 92, no. I remember 92 vividly. We beat Galwegians after a replay.
All right.
It was 0-0 the first day in Craigs, and we beat them the second day in Crowley Park. And Conor Kennelly was our captain. Sadly passed away, of course, the former Roscommon footballer passed away a couple of years ago. He was our captain that day when we won the cup. So they've organised, a bunch of lads have been doing nothing but organising this reunion for the past 6 months. So here's hoping it pulls off. But now it's time for the draw for the Under-16 Cup. Well, it's the only piece of rugby silverware I have. Might as well make hay. But let's move to the draw for the Under-16 Boys Cup, and we have got the teams in this and the unseeded teams again. Now, this is a straight run draw. You have unseeded teams drawn first, then the seeded teams drawn after that. Gort, Claremorris, Castlebar, Ballinrobe, Dunmore, Tuam, Craigs and Uachtarard are the unseeded teams. The seeded teams are Buccaneers, Corinthians, Ballina, Galwegians, Sligo, Loughrea, Ballinasloe and Westport. So that's the way the teams are lined out, seedings and unseeded. So let's move to the draw itself and to the unseeded teams that will be drawn out first. And the first team that will be on the road will be Dunmore. So Dunmore are drawn first. They will be away from home to an unseeded team. Drawn at home will be Craigs. Next up and away from home are Tuam. So, hello to Declan Slattery down there, by the way, as well, while I'm at it. Gort are next up. And they will be at home. Claremorris Colts.
Where did you play, John?
Actually, I was second row that day.
Were you?
Yeah. But a reformed hooker, shall we say.
Good man.
No, I'd rather front row any day of the week. Uachtarard will be at home. Oh, God, put me in tight, I'd be happy there. Next up, Castlebar. and they will be away from home. And finally, the team that will be at home, and they are Ballinrobe. Ballinrobe. So we now have our unseeded teams drawn. Away it will be Dunmore, Tuam, Claremorris, Castlebar, and at home will be Craigs, Gort, Oughterard, and Ballinrobe. So they are our teams. Last 16 games played on the 12th of February. Now let's bring in the seeded teams and find out where Dunmore, first of all, are going to be on the road to.
But as I was saying, John, that's the way the cup was for the few years, maybe about 10 years ago. It was the last four in the league, the top four in the league went into the cup. There was no other cup for the under-16s.
Wow.
Maybe it was because of junior cert or something like that.
Possibly, yeah.
So you went to Buccaneers because it was the Aurora Cup and you played your two matches and then played a final on the same day.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's all changed.
Slightly after my time, I must admit.
Yeah.
Long time after my time. Stephen Hosty might argue. But anyway, Westport are at home. Westport are at home to Dunmore. Craigs will be hosting Loughrea. Craigs will be hosting Loughrea. Ballina are at home to Tuam. And now, I think this is the longest journey possible in Connacht Rugby. Sligo are away to Gort.
Not so bad now with the new motorway.
No, not bad now. But in traditional days, it was.
Oh, yeah, huge.
Yeah, that was
from one end of the province
Connemara,
to the other.
or Connemara going to Athlone. That was the old back in the old days.
Yeah.
And speaking of Athlone, Buccaneers. Buccaneers will be at home to Claremorris.
Or Sligo going to Connemara.
Sligo going to Connemara, yeah. And you've got Ballinasloe, who are the team away, and they are going to be travelling to Oughterard. Nice spin. Corinthians drawn at home to Castlebar. Those clubs will be sick of the sight of each other, so they will. Next up, Galwegians. Galwegians. And they will be away to Ballinrobe. So just to recap on these games, I am looking at those, and having watched some of the games in the league already before Christmas, there's very little separating a lot of these teams. This could be a fantastic under-16 cup.
Well, you see
And
the
it's a
amount
traditionally
of,
great competition anyway.
You see the amount of seeded teams, so it's very competitive. But that's what cup rugby is about, isn't it? Anybody could win on the day.
Yeah, and that's and given the form and talking to a few boys from the different clubs over the past number of weeks, I mean they've always said, "Oh, we did a great season. We did this, we did that. We were unlucky. We might have lost by a point or whatever." So they really are building up. This could be a fantastic under-16
no
cup,
doubt,
without
no
a doubt.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's recap on those games in the last 16 of the under-16 Boys Cup. Westport at home to Dunmore. Craigs will host Loughrea. Ballina will host Tuam. Gort will play Sligo. Buccaneers will play Claremorris Colts. Oughterard to take on Ballinasloe. Corinthians will face Castlebar. And Ballinrobe will take on Galwegians. Games fixed for the 12th of February 2022. And it's not really that far away now. It's less than a month away, in fact, those games. So that's the clock ticks nicely. Now we're going to move on to the under-17 Cup. And there are... I think what I'm looking at here, there are 16 teams in it. And again, under-17 Cup competition is always a special one. As you see from now you have 4 unseeded teams, so they will be drawn first, and then the seeded teams come into it. You also have, as you see on the graphic in front of you, you have got 3 teams who will receive byes, and they are seeded. So they will receive byes, and then the others are drawn as they are. So let's go with the last 16. These games fixed for the 19th of February. And I'm seeing a 4th team will receive a bye. So just to clarify that, glad to do so. And the first team drawn out are Ballinrobe. Ballinrobe. So Ballinrobe are going to be in the 5th section, just to mention that, because the first 4, of course, have received byes. So Ballinrobe will be drawn in the 5th section. And we'll move on to Corrib. Corrib are the second team who will be at home. They're in block 6, just to clarify. Moving to Loughrea. Our next Now remember, these are all unseeded teams. 4 unseeded teams being drawn. Loughrea, and the last unseeded team, Loughrea, will be away from home, and Oughterard will be at home. So Oughterard will be at home. So there you go. So there are 4 unseeded teams. Now our seeded teams come into the mix, and they are, as we mentioned, Sligo, Bucks, Corinthians, Monivea, Galwegians, Ballina, Castlebar, and Ballinasloe. And our first 4 teams that are drawn out will receive byes into the last 8. So just to mention that, they'll receive byes into the last 8. So the first team drawn out will receive a bye. First team of the teams. I'll tell you, Michael, they're going to love you in Corinthians, honestly. Drawn, and they've been given a bye. Corinthians given a bye into the last 8 of the Under-17 Cup. And Carl Blake won't mind either, because Galwegians are next up. Galwegians have a bye in the last 16. And Sligo are next. So Sligo have a bye. And finally, Ballina have a bye. So they're the 4 teams that have received byes into the next round. Now we move on to the draws themselves and who Ballinrobe will be playing. And Ballinrobe will be going to Ballinasloe. Ballinrobe will be going to Ballinasloe. Next up, and it's Corrib. So who's going to Headford? It's Buccaneers. Buccaneers will be heading to Headford to take on Corrib. Where are Loughrea going? And Loughrea are going down the road to Monivea. So Loughrea will take on Monivea. That will be an absolute humdinger. And finally, the last one, Oughterard, and it's Castlebar Westport. Amalgamated side, Castlebar Westport will be heading to Oughterard for the last 16 of the Under-17 Boys Cup. So just to recap, once again, the draws themselves. It'll be the teams with byes, Corinthians, Galwegians, Sligo and Ballina. The draws then for those last 16 games will see Ballinasloe take on Ballinrobe, Corrib take on Buccaneers, Monivea face Loughrea, and Oughterard will take on the Castlebar Westport combined side. Those games to be played on the 19th of February. And, you know, Michael, there's one thing, I mean, the old traditional ways was the 14s, 16s, 18s competitions like they are in the girls. But given the increase in participation and the excitement that follows, and the fact that kids want to play, you know, might get lads coming out of under 16 who might be just a small bit too young for under 18. A cup like the under 13s, 15s, and 17s cups are fantastic in keeping them in action, and they've now grown great importance themselves.
Well, of course, and they're played on different weekends. So if teams are light on any age group, they can always stock up from the team below because it gives them that opportunity. But it just brings me back and what you were saying about cups. And we had a very good team in Sligo. I was coaching at one time, and we were flying in the league altogether. And I got reminded the other day from Luke Carty, Jack's brother at the match, that we were flying in the league and we had an away fixture to Buccaneers. And we went down and we got ambushed and the bedders and we went straight into the plate. But it didn't make any difference. We still had a good run in the plate.
Yeah.
And I think we did well there. But it didn't make any difference to the players, really. We were sore that we lost, of course. But anyway, if Luke Carty's looking in, he reminded us well of the ambush. So, but anyway, going back to the other thing, yeah, absolutely. So it makes it even for every club, small and big clubs. You can bring players up. And that's what the beauty about the weekends.
I mean, it's these cups that are behind us that are, you know, the reason. I mean, we're taking the draw out of the girls under 14 cup, but every single one of these cups have an amazing history to them. And I mean, you can just pick up, just for sake of argument. I mean, this is the under 18 cup, right? Now, it's called the segue, and believe me, if I was trying to do this in rehearsal, I would never have pulled it off. But the fact that this is the cup that the under 18 and a half cup is what they're going to be playing for next. And look at the teams. You know, if you look back over the history of them, I mean, okay, some big teams, but you've also you know, other teams have great runs in these competitions and get to finals. And this is the reason why, you know, people want to be, it's because they want to get their hands on something like this, isn't it?
Well, you know, naturally, I suppose, when you get to the under 18s, it's right across any game, the player numbers are falling back. So if you can get a team and get big numbers at under 13 and bring them right through, no matter what club you're in, you'll do well.
This cup, by the way, presented in 2006, is in memory of Cathal Gagan of Ardran, who played his rugby with Gort. So only just to acknowledge this cup, which of course was presented to the Connacht brand. And I'm going to leave it back down there. I was half tempted to put it on the thing and do the draw from it, but
yeah, it's wider.
It's wide, but let's keep this one going while we're going. As I say, let's not break a good thing. Let's move on to the final of our draws, and this is the under 18.5 boys cup. Again, straight draw. Unseeded teams first, and then we move on. The unseeded teams are Monivea, Corrib, Tuam, Dunmore, Loughrea, Claremorris and Oak Derard. Our seeded teams are Corinthians, Galwegians, Buccaneers, Ballina, Ballinasloe, Craigs, Sligo and Westport. Unseeded teams are drawn first. And the first unseeded team to be drawn will be Corrib. And Corrib will go into block 3 and will be away from home. Remember, there are 2 byes as well. We'll bring them into in just a moment. Now we move on to the next team, and they are Claremorris Colts. Claremorris Colts will be at home. Who they'll face, we'll tell you in a couple of minutes. Next up are Loughrea. And Loughrea will be away. So Loughrea are next. Next team drawn out will be at home, and they are Oak Derard. So Oak Derard will be at home. Next team drawn up away from home would be Tuam Dunmore. Tuam Dunmore. They could be a team to watch out for actually in this year's cup, because they're very, very nice team of lads starting to come through, I believe.
A lot of hard work going on.
Serious, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mentioned Angus Doherty as well, by the way, and all the guys down in Tuam, as well as Slats, the legend himself. And Monivea are next up. I don't think Pat Blade has spoken to me since. I wished him a happy birthday. They are our unseeded teams. So you've got Corrib, who will be away from home. Claremorris will be at home. Loughrea away. Oak Derard at home. Tuam away and Monivea at home. And our seeded teams are now into the fray and watching, dare I say it, at the edge of their seats. The first team to receive a bye are Ballina. Ballina have received a bye into the last 8 of the under 18.5 boys cup, and next up and also receiving a bye will be Ballinasloe. Ballinasloe will receive a bye. So Ballinasloe and Ballina have received byes into the next round. Now we move into the draws itself, and who is going to be visited by Corrib. Westport will be at home to Corrib in the last 16 of the under 18.5 Boys Cup. Next up, and who's travelling to Claremorris? It's Corinthians. Corinthians away to Claremorris. I think Fergal Leonard will be interested in that.
Just rattle these around a bit now.
So Corinthians away to Claremorris. So next up is, who are Loughrea? Loughrea are going to Buccaneers. Loughrea away to Buccaneers. Next up, Galwegians. And all Galway clash. Galwegians away to Oak Derard. Next up are Craigs. And Craigs are at home to Tuam Dunmore. Craigs at home to Tuam Dunmore. Quick spin through Glenamaddy, be there in 20 minutes, lads. And Sligo are next up, and they are away to Monivea. So Sligo are away to Monivea. So there is the draws for the last 16 of the under 18.5 Boys Cup games we played on the 12th of February. Ballina, Ballinasloe have received byes. Westport at home to Corrib. Claremorris at home to Corinthians. Buccaneers at home to Loughrea. Oak Derard at home to Galwegians. Craigs at home to Tuam Dunmore, and Monivea at home to Sligo. And we wish every single one of those teams, Michael. I mean, the draws have been completed. We have another draw to do yet. But I want to just talk about, you mentioned the spirit of rugby and go into a little bit more detail. What was that?
Spirit of Rugby is a massive, document. And I suppose it's what makes us different. And one of them is respect for referees. So I suppose there's a lot of little small things we can do as well. And we would have done it when maybe years back. And a lot of teams still do it, but everybody needs to do it. First of all, I suppose, respect for the referee. Second of all, you clap the opposite team off the pitch. You cheer on the referee off the pitch, right? They're basic things, right? Maybe then when we go into the dressing rooms, we clean the dressing rooms after us. Maybe we don't throw our jerseys on the ground, we hang them up when we're finished the match. And the last thing then is, which I think is great, is, and this is only a small part of it, is that if the captain and the coach goes into the opposite team, just to thank them for the match. And they're all small little things, and we can all do them. And I would have brought them up at meetings, and everybody agrees. And, I don't know whether my own club does it, but we just have to keep reminding people to do it.
But that thing about, that is one thing, though, and I must admit is a tradition, I suppose, is that, the lads lining up at the gate or at the, heading into the dressing room just to give the three cheers. Yeah, some people have said, oh, why should they do it? But in fairness, it gives you a chance to meet your opposite number where you're not going head to head with them and maybe just, shake his hand and say, well done. It's all about simple stuff.
Simple stuff, but it's all about that culture as well. We can leave the game behind us out there. Absolutely, fight cat and dogs when we're on the pitch. But when we come off it, we're all rugby people,
Well, some of the greatest gentlemen, anybody from whatever area you're from, you'd know certain lads of certain ages, guys who are absolute animals on the pitch, but absolute gentlemen off it.
Without a doubt.
And that's still the case. It's still the case to this day. And especially amongst all the clubs. I think that's something that really is being stressed these days at whether it be underage level up to club level, boys, girls, whatever you want to call it, that this importance of the referee, because we have to stress this, because without referees we can't have games. And you can't just get somebody off the street and get them to referee. There are serious implications.
Huge work, and the affiliated referee and everything, but there's nothing better than the 100% referee, and that's what people want. And if we don't support them, we won't get them. So it's about everybody, looking after them when they arrive to the club. That's another thing. Just introduce yourself to the referee when he does arrive to the club, so he's made feel at home and that. And all them little things build up to the big things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always great when you do see a referee, and anybody who's played, we all had our favourite referees, or those we weren't too fond of. But even to this day, even down there, you still see them. You still see them every now and again. And you go, Mick, how you, Alan? How's the crack?
That's right.
Lads you just know and shake hands to and have the crack with. And sometimes they wind you up. It's kind of part and parcel of the game, really, isn't it? But it's wonderful about the game. That's one thing we always try to stress when it comes to rugby, has been this level of camaraderie, this level of family, this level of community that exists in rugby. And some people say I'm talking out of my hat, but this is what I see. And it's something we really have to, I suppose, develop a bit more.
Any team that has it, or any team that can build that friendship and a brothers type thing, that's what you want. But it's in every sport, but I think we do it slightly better in rugby. The team building, and like you said, when you're off the pitch, you're all the one. You're all rugby players.
And it's always great to meet your opposite number after a tough day. Well,
absolutely,
long time ago now, but it's great to meet them after a tough day and kind of just have a chat.
But the under 18s and a half is what is the nearest thing now to senior rugby, and it is very important that all our clubs, treat it as the last link of the conveyor belt, and we have to put maybe a senior coach or something linked with it. So as we bring them players up into the senior level, and that small, big clubs, junior clubs, AIL clubs, it's the last link.
And are we going to see a level of progression, hopefully, because there is an under 20 competition, but the Connacht teams are involved in Leinster. Could we see it happening where you might have a Connacht under 20 cup, because there used to be one, and it was very popular?
I think there's talks, because a lot of clubs now, it's because of all the teams underage. I think we're progressing to a 20s, but the numbers, it's a numbers game as well, and a lot of them at senior level now, some of them are under 20s, so you're splitting that again.
Yes.
But I think to ask a lot of our players to go from 18 and a half right into senior, that's a break.
Yeah.
So we need to probably provide the 20s. But travelling to the other side of Leinster or Munster isn't the answer either. Yeah. But we have to create one.
Yeah, so quite interesting though. It's funny that the sides that are involved in the JP Flanagan competitions in Leinster, Corinthians, Galwegians, Inuit Galway Buccaneers, they've done very well this season.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know Brian Casburn sends me everything to do with the under-20s with Corinthians, and they've done very well. And a lot of those boys have progressed on to the firsts, and they've done very well with their win over Balmain.
Some of them, they're playing both, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the
In
lads-
every club.
And I mean, a good win over Ballinab. I want to mention that last Saturday as well in the IL.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's Shinshke Ella, because that is for another day. If we want to do an adult a conversation about adult rugby, I'll tell you, we'll be here all night. But let's move on, because we have another very important part of the draw. We now know where each team is as regards their respective competitions. What we don't know is what happens to them after that.
The next step.
So we now move on to that next step. And this is a very exciting thing, because the one thing about it is teams will know, for example, just for the sake of argument, okay, we know who we've got in the prelim, and if we win that, we know who we've got in the next round. But what happens after that? So let's go to that. And that's where it brings us to the next part of our draw. This is our 10th and final draw, by the way. And as you will see, and this is across the board with all competitions. So regardless of whether you were drawn in the under 14 Girls Cup, 16s, 18 girls, from 13 boys up to 18 and a half, this is where your team will be after its respective game if you qualify for quarterfinals or semi-finals. And those details will be forwarded on to your club with the rest of the draws and all the literature to explain what's going on. But just as we are, we're kind of keeping it as simple as humanly possible, because I'd get confused, to be brutally honest with you. Let's move on, because we now know we have 8 teams written here. These are the, as regards last 16 to last 8, and quarterfinals to semi-finals. The quarterfinals will be, the last 16s will be drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. They will then go into the quarterfinal boxes, and then they will be then drawn into the semi-finals. And that's the way it is across all of the competitions, across all of the age groups. That's how the draw is made. So whatever way it's drawn here will be the same for your age group. So just to mention that, and hopefully that makes it clear. So let's go, and we will talk about now this is the way that the quarter-final draw will work out, and they will be at home. So number 7, so the winner of the last 16, that is number 7. Now remember earlier on, I did mention there are numbers associated with respective boxes, and when you see the draws, you'll understand where I come from now. So the winner of the last 16, number 7, will be at home in the first of the quarterfinals. And then we move on, and they will take on number 4. So it's number 4, winner last 16, number 4 will be away to winner last 16, number 7. Next up, winner last 16, number 6, game 6. Winner last 16, game 6 will be at home, and they will take on winner last 16, game 2. Winner last 16, game 2. Next up, winner last 16, game 1. Winner last 16, game 1. They will be at home in their quarterfinal, and they will take on winner last 16, game 5. Winner last 16, game 5. And we have 2 more to draw, and they are at home. Winner last 16, game 8. Winner last 16, game 8. And they will take on winner last 16, game 3. Winner last 16, game 3. So let's just recap. This is the way the quarterfinal draw will work with whatever age group competition that you're involved in. Winner last 16, game 7 will play winner of the last 16, game 4. Winner of last 16, game 6 will be at home to winner last 16, game 2. Winner of last 16, game 1 will be at home to winner last 16, game 5. And winner last 16, game 8 will be at home to winner last 16, game 3. We now move to the semi-final draw. And the semi-finals, you will see winner quarter-final 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first team at home in the semi-final will be winner quarter-final 1. Winner quarter-final game 1.
Game 7 or 4. The winners of 7 or
winner
4.
Winner of 7 or 4.
Yeah.
And they will play winner quarter-final game 4. And that would be either 8 or 3. And then we've just the 2 more to mention. Winner quarter-final game 2 will be at home. And they will play...
They'll be looking at all their pathways now to the finals.
Yes, I used to love that actually. A winner quarter-final game 3. We beat Cloughrane, we could have such one. Then we might have such one. Game 3. So there, just to recap one more time regarding the quarterfinal and semi-final draws, and this is the same across all age groups and across all competitions. The winners of I'll just call them as by their respective games. So game 7 against game 4, game 6 against game 2, game 1 against game 5, and game 8 against game 3. They're the winners, of course, their respective last 16 encounters. for the quarterfinals, and then for the semi-finals, it will be winner of quarterfinal 1 against 4 and winner of quarterfinal 2 against 3. Full explanations will be sent out to all the clubs and will be on the Connacht Rugby Club and Community website, and full details will be allocated to everybody. So don't worry, there's nothing to be worried about, no confusion either. It will be all sorted out. It's been an amazing draw, and it's been fantastic to be part of it. Just to, just to see, I'll put them back in there. But it's just been fantastic. And one thing about the draw, though, Michael, and just as an overall before we finish up, the wonderful thing about it is, we've seen it's been very well spread out. A couple of teams have met each other once or twice, and there's a couple of repeat fixtures. That can't be had. There's a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely. Like when you see it, and I only think back at the old draws and all the different age group coordinators and all now that we used to have. We'd great people running them, but the way it's done now, it's just really, really. It's really, really, I don't know what the word to use. I was going to say fair, but we have to thank Richard Doyle in Connacht Rugby again. He puts all the hard work into that, and everybody knows that. And I just want to thank him. And I want to thank yourself for doing such a great job today as well.
Look, one thing about rugby is the team effort, and always has been. And that's exactly, that's it. I mean, hopefully, just before we leave you, and just to say, you'd hope that we would have a fantastic competition. Everything gets played, which is the most important thing, and everybody gets to enjoy some good rugby between now and the finals.
Yeah, well, it's what it's all about, isn't it? And there's a lot of people worked very hard, and I know they have this month to play with the schools is on this month. And it's a trial year for this. We did do it before. A lot of people remember that, but I think we're going the right direction. And there will be a review at the end of the year. But the way it is now, it's working out well, especially with the high COVID cases and everything where people had to stop training. But people are really getting back at it now, and it's given them a good month, as you can see there.
And people
the 5th to 12th, absolutely, only for it. But it was great to see, and it's a huge achievement getting the league out of the way before the Christmas, especially with everything that was going on.
And a final word for Bank of Ireland. We've mentioned them a few times. We could mention them 20 more times because in fairness, and I've said this, without their sponsorship, without their support, these things simply cannot happen.
Yeah, well, look at from root and branch, and the support that money or that sponsorship gives all of Connacht Rugby. We couldn't do it without them, and we have to thank Bank of Ireland for all their help, and really what they see in promoting our girls' game as well, right down to the core of it, and it can only be good.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you very much for doing the draw, and the best of luck to Sligo for the rest of the season as well. You've got a couple of big games coming up ahead of you. And that's where we bring it to the end of what has been a fascinating evening of rugby draws right across the board, because every single one of the 130 odd teams that will be involved, whether it be in boys or in girls rugby, can now start counting down to the start of their respective competitions. And we wish every one of you the very, very best of luck starting in a few weeks' time. And here's hoping that your team, whoever it is, has a fantastic season and all going well, makes it to finals day in the sports ground. Please God, it does happen. I have to say a special word of thanks to everybody in Connacht Rugby. Richard Doyle has been doing an amazing job and has done an amazing job making sure that everything ran smoothly. Stephen Long as well. I want to thank Michael O'Hare as well for the draw, and wish him and the season for the best of the rest of the season. And also the guys here in Sound to Light in Galway for their fantastic help and their work in making sure that all of this has come to fruition, and there hasn't been that many mess-ups, from me anyway, especially. From all of us here in Sound to Light, I want to wish the very, very best for the rest of the season. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us, and have a great night. Good night.